Celeste Harper held her mother's cold hand in the sterile hospital room, watching the monitor flatline. At 20 years old, she was now completely alone in the world. And Harper had fought ovarian cancer for 6 months, and the battle had consumed everything. Their savings, Celeste's college fund, and finally, her mother's life. "I'm sorry, baby," her mother had whispered hours before the end. "I'm leaving you with so much debt. $240,000. That's what dying cost when you had no insurance and too much hope." Celeste had dropped out of Columbia's pre-med program to care for her mother, working 3 jobs while watching the woman who raised her waste away. Now and was gone, and Celeste was drowning in medical bills with no degree, no family, and no way forward. 3 months later, Celeste was working the night shift at a diner in Kentucky, her Columbia University dreams seemingly dead. The creditors called daily. She'd moved back to the trailer park where she grew up, sleeping on a mattress on the floor, eating ramen to save every dollar for debt payments that barely made a dent. Then the letter arrived on cream-colored paper with embossed letterhead, the Blackwell Foundation. "Dear Ms. Harper, your story has come to our attention. Your academic excellence despite hardship, your sacrifice for your mother, your determination to become a doctor. The Blackwell Foundation exists to help deserving young people like you. We would like to offer you a full scholarship to complete your medical degree, plus living expenses and debt assistance." Celeste read it 3 times, hands shaking. Things like this didn't happen to girls from trailer parks. But the phone number was real. The foundation was real. Hope, dangerous and intoxicating, bloomed in her chest for the first time since her mother's diagnosis. Patricia Blackwell was everything Celeste imagined wealth to be: elegant, poised, draped in pearls and practiced compassion. They met at an upscale cafe in New Haven where Celeste felt painfully out of place in her thrift store dress and worn shoes. "I lost my own mother young," Patricia said, her voice warm and maternal. "I see so much of myself in you. Let me help you achieve your dreams, dear. It's what your mother would have wanted." The offer was staggering. Full medical school tuition for 2 years, $3,000 monthly for expenses, $50,000 toward her mother's debt with promises of more. One condition: she'd live at the Blackwell estate during her studies, participating in family events and foundation activities to inspire other scholarship recipients. "Think of it as family," Patricia smiled, touching Celeste's hand. Celeste signed the papers with tears streaming down her face, overwhelmed by gratitude. Someone believed in her. Someone cared. The universe had finally answered her prayers. The Blackwell estate was a different world entirely. 30 rooms spread across manicured acres, marble floors that echoed with her uncertain footsteps, crystal chandeliers that cost more than her mother's lifetime earnings. Celeste's bedroom alone was larger than the trailer she'd grown up in, with a 4-poster bed and windows overlooking gardens that seemed to stretch forever. She met Nathaniel Blackwell that first evening, Patricia's son, a cardiac surgeon at 32. Tall, handsome, brilliant, with a smile that made her stomach flip and a confidence that spoke of a life without struggle. "Welcome," he said, shaking her hand. "Mother's told me about you. Your story is remarkable." Celeste felt heat rise to her cheeks. Men like Nathaniel didn't notice girls like her, girls with calloused hands and goodwill clothes and desperation in their eyes. Or so she thought. Nathaniel pursued her slowly, carefully, like a predator who knew his prey would spook easily. Late-night conversations when she was studying in the library. Coffee brought to her room with a croissant from the French bakery in town. Walks through the estate gardens where he'd ask about her childhood, her dreams, her mother. "You're different from the people in my world," he told her one autumn evening as they walked beneath trees turning gold. "You've earned everything you have. You fought for it. You're real in a way no one else I know is real." When he kissed her under the stars 3 months later, Celeste felt her carefully guarded heart crack open. She'd never let herself dream of love. Survival had been her only focus since she was old enough to understand poverty. But Nathaniel made her believe in fairy tales. "I think I'm falling for you," he whispered against her lips. "I already have," she admitted, and meant it with every fiber of her being. 1 year into her scholarship, Nathaniel took her to dinner at the most expensive restaurant in Connecticut. Celeste wore a dress he'd bought her, the first new dress she'd ever owned, and felt like an imposter among the wealthy diners with their casual confidence and inherited grace. Over dessert, he knelt beside the table, and the restaurant went silent. Celeste Harper, you've shown me what real strength looks like. What real love means. Will you marry me? The ring was stunning. A brilliant diamond that caught the light like captured fire, worth more than anything she'd ever touched. She said yes through tears, barely able to believe this was her life. The poor girl from Kentucky was going to marry a surgeon, finish medical school, have a future that didn't involve drowning in debt and working until her hands bled. Patricia embraced her that night, smelling of expensive perfume. You're like a daughter to me now, Celeste. Welcome to the family, truly and forever. What Celeste didn't know, every moment had been choreographed, every word scripted, every touch calculated. In Patricia's study, 3 people reviewed their plan over brandy and satisfaction. She's completely committed, Nathaniel reported, examining his fingernails with casual boredom. Thinks she's in love. It's almost pathetic how easily she believed it all. Perfect, Patricia said, swirling her glass. We'll host the engagement party in 3 months. That's when we spring the trap. Harrison Pembroke, the family lawyer and Patricia's secret lover, spread documents across the mahogany desk. I've prepared everything. The forged expense reports, the fake security footage, the witness statements. When we're done, she'll be completely discredited, damaged beyond repair. Vivian Sterling, Nathaniel's actual fiancée, laughed from the leather sofa. I almost feel sorry for her. Almost. But then I remember she's just a means to an end. They needed a scapegoat, you see. Nathaniel had assaulted a woman in medical school. The family had paid her off, buried the scandal, but the liability remained. If she ever came forward, if the story ever resurfaced, they needed someone else to blame. Someone powerless. Someone no one would believe or defend. Celeste Harper, the orphan scholarship girl with debt and desperation written all over her, was perfect. Disposable. Forgettable. Worthless except as insurance. Celeste practiced her smile in the mirror for an hour before the party. Tonight she'd meet Connecticut society as Nathaniel's fiancée, not as a charity case or a curiosity. She wore her hair up the way Nathaniel liked it, and the blue gown he'd chosen that made her feel like a princess in a fairy tale. The ballroom glittered with 200 guests, old money, new money, all of it more money than Celeste could fathom. Champagne flowed. An orchestra played. She held Nathaniel's arm, trying not to tremble, trying to belong in this world of casual wealth and inherited privilege. Then Patricia clinked her glass, asking for everyone's attention. Celeste smiled, expecting a toast to the happy couple. Thank you all for coming to celebrate tonight, Patricia announced, her voice suddenly cold. We're here to honor love and family. But before we toast, I need to address something very serious. The smile died on Celeste's face. Something in Patricia's voice was terribly, horribly wrong. 3 months ago, Patricia continued, her voice carrying false sadness that made Celeste's blood run cold, we discovered that Celeste Harper, the young woman we welcomed into our home as a scholarship recipient, had become dangerously obsessed with my son Nathaniel. The words hit like physical blows. The room went silent except for the whisper of expensive fabric and shocked gasps. What? Celeste whispered, her voice lost in the vast ballroom. Celeste began stalking Nathaniel, Patricia said, playing to her audience perfectly. Making up elaborate stories about a relationship between them. Fabricating evidence of an engagement. We have emails she sent, texts, even forged jewelry she claimed he gave her. We tried to help her privately. She's clearly unwell, suffering from some kind of delusion possibly stemming from her mother's death and her financial desperation. That's not true. Celeste cried out, her voice breaking. Nathaniel, tell them we're engaged. Tell them about us. Nathaniel finally looked at her, and his face was cold, a stranger's face, empty of every soft word and tender kiss they'd shared. Celeste, you need serious help. We've been patient with you, but this fantasy has gone too far. I'm engaged to Vivian Sterling. I have been for 2 years. You've known that. Everyone here knows that. From the crowd, a beautiful blonde woman stepped forward. Vivian Sterling, in a stunning gown that cost more than Celeste's mother's funeral, wearing an enormous engagement ring that caught the light mockingly. "This is so sad," Vivian said, not looking sad at all. Her voice dripped with false sympathy. "Poor thing. She really believed it, didn't she?" "The ring." Celeste held up her hand desperately. "He gave me this ring. Nathaniel, you proposed to me. You said you loved me." Patricia shook her head with practiced sadness. "That's costume jewelry, dear. Worth maybe $200. You bought it yourself with your scholarship stipend. We have the receipt. You've been showing it to people, claiming Nathaniel proposed. We have witness statements from the staff." Harrison Pembroke, the family lawyer, stepped forward with a folder thick with documents. "Ms. Harper, we also have evidence that you've been embezzling from the foundation. Forging expense reports. Using scholarship funds for personal purchases. We estimate you've stolen approximately $30,000 over the past year." "What? No. I haven't stolen anything." Celeste's voice was shrill with panic. "And there's more," Harrison continued, his voice professionally regretful. "You've been accessing Nathaniel's personal files at the hospital, stealing patient information. We have security footage showing you in his office after hours, going through confidential files. We believe you were planning to blackmail him, or perhaps the family." Celeste looked around wildly at 200 faces showing the same thing: pity, disgust, judgment. Every single person believed she was crazy. A stalker. A thief. Delusional. Dangerous. No one, not one person, doubted the Blackwell family's word. "We're not pressing charges," Patricia said magnanimously, playing the merciful benefactor to perfection. "Despite the theft, despite the stalking, despite the lies, we're going to be compassionate. Because we understand you're suffering from severe mental illness. We're going to help you get the treatment you desperately need." "Treatment?" Celeste's voice was barely a whisper, her throat closing with terror. "We've arranged for you to be admitted to Riverside Psychiatric Hospital," Patricia said. "Involuntary commitment, for your own safety and the safety of others. You're a danger to yourself and possibly to Nathaniel. The commitment order has been signed by a judge. The ambulance is waiting outside as we speak." Celeste tried to run. Security guards appeared from nowhere, grabbing her arms with professional efficiency. Strong hands. No mercy. "Please," she screamed, struggling against them. "Someone help me. This isn't real. Nathaniel, please. Tell them the truth. Tell them we love each other." Nathaniel turned away, putting his arm around Vivian, dismissing Celeste like she was nothing. Like she'd never been anything. As they dragged Celeste toward the exit, she saw Patricia smile. Just for a moment, the mask slipped, and Celeste saw pure malice in those cold eyes. Triumph and cruelty and absolute power. "No!" Celeste screamed, fighting the guards with everything she had. "You're lying. All of you are lying. Please, someone has to believe me." But no one listened. As far as everyone at that party was concerned, they'd just witnessed a mentally ill woman's breakdown. How tragic. How sad. How fortunate the Blackwell family had tried so hard to help such a troubled girl. Really, they were saints for being so patient. The ambulance doors closed. Celeste was strapped to a gurney, sedated against her will with a needle in her arm, and driven away from the mansion through gates that closed behind her like the jaws of a trap. Everything she'd worked for, her scholarship, her degree, her future, her dreams of honoring her mother's sacrifice, was gone in one night. Destroyed by the people who'd promised to save her. For 6 months, Celeste was imprisoned in Riverside, and it was a special kind of hell. Every attempt to explain the truth was labeled delusional thinking. They showed her doctored emails, fake texts, forged documents showing she'd stalked Nathaniel. When she insisted the relationship was real, they increased her medication until she could barely think through the fog. They diagnosed her with erotomania, delusional belief that someone is in love with you, borderline personality disorder, psychotic episodes. The labels piled up like stones, burying her alive. The treatment was systematic abuse, heavy antipsychotic medications that left her foggy and numb, isolation when she refused to accept reality, group therapy where she was forced to admit her delusions, while other patients stared at her with pity. If she resisted, they threatened permanent commitment. Life in this place forever. Twice a month, Patricia would visit out of concern for her scholarship recipient. She'd sit across from Celeste in the visiting room, speaking softly so only Celeste could hear, while the staff watched approvingly at this dedicated philanthropist caring for her troubled charge. "Enjoying your stay, dear?" Patricia would smile, her voice honey-sweet and poison-laced. "You should have been grateful for what we gave you. Instead, you got greedy. Thought you could actually become one of us. Thought a poor girl from a trailer park could marry into our world." Celeste would stare at her, too medicated to even feel the full force of her rage. "Here's the truth," Patricia would continue, examining her manicured nails. "We needed a scapegoat. Someone to blame if Nathaniel's past ever came to light. Someone no one would believe. An orphan with debt and desperation written all over her. You were perfect, so eager, so grateful, so pathetically trusting." "Why?" Celeste would whisper. "Insurance, dear. Just insurance. So thank you, Celeste. Thank you for being so naive, so trusting, so easily manipulated. You played your part beautifully." Then Patricia would leave, and if Celeste tried to tell the staff what Patricia said, they'd add it to her file as paranoid delusions about her benefactor and increase her medication. For months in, Celeste stopped fighting. She was so medicated, so isolated, so worn down by the daily assault on her reality, she almost started believing their version of events. Maybe she had imagined everything? Maybe she was crazy? Maybe the relationship had never been real? One night, heavily sedated and drifting in chemical fog, she overheard two nurses talking outside her room. Shame about that girl. The Harper one. The stalker? The one obsessed with that surgeon. Yeah. I heard she was actually a really good student before she lost it. Full scholarship to Columbia. Then her mom died and she just snapped, I guess. Rich families always trying to help, and this is what they get. No good deed goes unpunished, right? Listening to them reduce her destruction to gossip, Celeste realized with devastating clarity, this was the story. This was what everyone would always believe. She was the crazy stalker girl who deluded herself into thinking a rich man loved her. She would die in here, and no one would care or remember. That night, staring at the ceiling with chemical clarity cutting through the medication fog, Celeste decided, if she was going to die, it would be on her own terms. She had to escape. And somehow, impossibly, she had to prove the truth. There was one person at Riverside who didn't quite believe the official story. Dr. Malcolm Turner, a psychiatrist in his 60s who'd seen too many inconvenient people warehoused in psychiatric facilities over his long career. He'd watched wealth and power weaponize mental health diagnoses before. Something about Celeste's case bothered him deeply. Her supposed delusions were very specific, very consistent, and backed by details a truly delusional person wouldn't include. Her emotional responses were appropriate: anger, grief, betrayal, not the inappropriate effect he'd expect from someone with psychosis or erotomania. She didn't exhibit the other symptoms he'd expect with her diagnoses. He began reviewing her case more carefully, staying late to read through files. He noticed irregularities. The commitment order was pushed through unusually fast. The evidence against her seemed oddly coordinated and professional. The Blackwell family's involvement was suspiciously hands-on for wealthy people supposedly dealing with a stalker. Dr. Turner did something risky. He contacted an old friend who was an investigative journalist. "Catherine, I think I have a patient who's been institutionalized under false pretenses. Can you look into the Blackwell family quietly?" While Celeste was still imprisoned, losing herself in the fog of forced medication, Dr. Turner's journalist friend, Catherine Vale, started digging into the Blackwell family with the persistence of someone who'd spent 30 years uncovering corruption. She found the medical student Nathaniel had assaulted years ago, the one the family paid off with an NDA and 6 figures to stay silent. She discovered 2 other women who claimed Nathaniel had harassed them, but were silenced with money and threats. She found irregularities in the Blackwell Foundation finances, money that should have gone to scholarships but disappeared into offshore accounts. She learned Harrison Pembroke specialized in making problems disappear for wealthy clients. Catherine brought this information to Dr. Turner over coffee in a quiet cafe. Together, reviewing the evidence, they realized the terrible truth. Celeste Harper was telling the truth. The relationship had been real. The Blackwells had systematically destroyed an innocent woman. "We need to get her out," Catherine said. "If she stays there much longer, she'll be too damaged to help herself." Dr. Turner nodded grimly. "I'll arrange a transfer. But once she's free, she'll need evidence. Without proof, no one will believe her word over theirs." "Leave that to me," Catherine said. Dr. Turner arranged for Celeste to be transferred to a lower security facility for improved treatment. In reality, he helped her walk out the door to freedom. Catherine was waiting with clothes, cash, and a safe place to stay. Once free, Celeste felt like a ghost, hollow, damaged, barely recognizing herself in the mirror. 6 months of forced medication and psychological abuse had left scars. But somewhere deep inside, a spark of her old self remained. The girl who'd worked 3 jobs while maintaining a 4.0 GPA. The girl who'd fought to save her mother even when the battle was already lost. "They tried to destroy you," Catherine told her gently. "But they failed. You're still here. And now we're going to make them pay." Together with Dr. Turner, they began building a case. Catherine's investigative skills and Dr. Turner's psychiatric expertise combined with Celeste's memories to piece together the truth. The evidence they uncovered was damning. Hotel records showing Nathaniel and Celeste stayed together multiple times. He'd used his real name and credit card, never expecting anyone would check. Restaurant receipts with both their names. Photos from Nathaniel's phone that Catherine's hacker source retrieved from cloud backups, showing them together in clearly romantic situations. Kissing, embracing, looking at each other with obvious love. Jewelry purchase records showing Nathaniel bought Celeste an engagement ring for $25,000 from Cartier, not costume jewelry worth $200. Text messages from Nathaniel's cloud backup declaring his love, discussing their future, planning their wedding. But more importantly, they found the conspiracy evidence, emails between Patricia, Harrison, and Nathaniel discussing the Harper solution. Financial records showing payments to witnesses who claimed Celeste was delusional. Metadata on the doctored documents showing they were created after the engagement party. Security footage from the estate showing Nathaniel and Celeste together as a couple, footage that had been deliberately hidden. Most importantly, they found Amanda Price, a former scholarship recipient from 5 years earlier. Amanda had also been seduced by Nathaniel, then framed and destroyed when the family was done with her. She'd been too afraid to come forward alone, but when Catherine found her, she broke down. "They did the same thing to me," Amanda told Celeste, crying. "Nathaniel seduced me, made me believe he loved me. Then they accused me of stealing, of being obsessed, of fabricating everything. They didn't commit me, but they destroyed my reputation so thoroughly I couldn't finish my degree. I lost everything. I've been too afraid to come forward again, but if you're willing to fight them, I'll stand with you." Celeste took Amanda's hands. "We're going to stop them. Together. They chose us because they thought we were powerless. They were wrong." With Amanda's testimony and mountains of evidence, they had a case. A real case that could bring down a family. 6 months after escaping Riverside, Celeste stood at a podium with cameras flashing and reporters crowding close. Catherine had arranged everything. Major media presence, legal representation, protection from the Blackwell family's inevitable retaliation. Celeste wore a simple dress, no makeup to hide the toll 6 months of psychiatric imprisonment had taken. She wanted them to see what the Blackwells had done. "My name is Celeste Harper," she began, her voice steady despite her shaking hands. "6 months ago, the Blackwell family had me committed to a psychiatric hospital against my will. They told everyone I was delusional, that I'd stalked Nathaniel Blackwell and fabricated a relationship with him. They painted me as a mentally ill charity case who became obsessed with her benefactor's son. Today, I'm here to show you the truth." The screens behind her lit up with evidence, photos of her and Nathaniel kissing, texts declaring love, hotel receipts, the Cartier ring receipt. Proof after undeniable proof. Nathaniel Blackwell seduced me as part of a calculated plan. His family needed a scapegoat, someone to blame if his history of assaulting women ever came to light. They chose me because I was poor, alone, and powerless. They thought no one would believe me over them. She showed the emails between Patricia and Harrison discussing the Harper solution and the insurance policy. Patricia Blackwell runs a foundation supposedly helping disadvantaged students. In reality, she uses it to find vulnerable young people to exploit. I'm not the first. Amanda Price, another scholarship recipient, will be speaking after me. We believe there are more victims who've been too afraid to come forward. Amanda stepped up, her voice shaking but determined, adding her testimony. And there's more, Celeste continued, her voice growing stronger. Patricia Blackwell and her lawyer Harrison Pembroke have been embezzling from the foundation. Money donated to help students like me. They've stolen over $2 million over 5 years, blamed missing funds on scholarship recipients, and used false psychiatric commitments to silence anyone who discovered the truth. The room erupted. Reporters shouted questions. Cameras flashed like lightning. The story would be everywhere by nightfall. The Blackwell family thought they could destroy me because I was nobody, Celeste said, her voice cutting through the chaos. But being nobody meant I had nothing left to lose. And when you have nothing to lose, you become very, very dangerous. Within 24 hours, everything changed. The FBI opened investigations into the foundation fraud. The state medical board suspended Nathaniel's license pending review. The district attorney began looking into the falsified psychiatric commitments. 3 more women came forward with allegations against Nathaniel, emboldened by Celeste's courage. Harrison Pembroke was disbarred and arrested. The carefully constructed Blackwell empire began crumbling, exposed to sunlight after years of operating in shadow. The trials took a year, but justice, real justice, was finally served. Nathaniel Blackwell was convicted of fraud, conspiracy, and sexual assault when the old case was reopened with new evidence. His medical license was permanently revoked. He was sentenced to 12 years in prison, and civil judgments against him totaled $8 million. Patricia Blackwell was convicted of embezzlement, fraud, conspiracy, and false imprisonment. She was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. All her assets were seized, the foundation dissolved, her reputation destroyed forever, from philanthropist to predator in the court of public opinion. Harrison Pembroke was convicted of fraud, falsifying legal documents, and conspiracy. 10 years in prison, permanently disbarred, his life and career destroyed. Vivian Sterling, though not criminally charged, saw her reputation and social standing destroyed. Her family disowned her for the association. The last anyone heard, she was living abroad under a different name. Riverside Psychiatric Hospital was investigated for accepting patients without proper evaluation and paid settlements to Celeste and other victims. With the settlement money and seized Blackwell assets awarded to victims, Celeste rebuilt her life piece by piece. She returned to Columbia and completed her medical degree, graduating with honors. She specialized in psychiatry, focusing on trauma, helping others who'd been broken by the system that nearly destroyed her. She paid off every penny of her mother's debt, all $240,000 plus interest, and established a memorial fund in Ann Harper's name. She created the Harper Foundation, a legitimate scholarship program for students from poverty, providing not just financial aid but legal protection and mental health services. Everything the Blackwell Foundation pretended to be. She testified before Congress about psychiatric abuse and false commitments, helping to reform laws that protected vulnerable populations. She wrote a memoir, Tears and Sorrow, How I Survived Being the Scapegoat of the Rich. The book became a bestseller, exposing how wealthy families exploit vulnerable people. Every time it was featured or adapted, more victims came forward, not just of the Blackwells, but of similar schemes. Slowly, painfully, Celeste healed. She found love with a public defender who valued her strength rather than her vulnerability. They married. They had a daughter and named her Anne. 5 years after the trials, Celeste received a letter from Patricia in prison requesting a visit. Against her therapist's advice, she went, needing closure, needing to face her demon one final time. Patricia looked small and defeated in her prison uniform, aged a decade in 5 years. Gone was the elegant matriarch in pearls. "Why did you come?" Patricia asked. "Closure," Celeste said simply. You destroyed my family, Patricia said bitterly. My son is in prison. I'll die here. The Blackwell name is mud forever. All because you couldn't accept your place. Celeste looked at her calmly, no longer the frightened girl Patricia had victimized. My place? You mean poor, powerless, disposable? That's what you thought I was. A nobody whose life didn't matter. Someone you could use and throw away like trash. You were nothing, Patricia spat with venom. I was a human being, Celeste said quietly. With dreams and rights and dignity. You forgot that people who have nothing also have nothing to lose. You gave me nothing to protect except the truth. So I protected it with everything I had. She stood to leave, done with this woman forever. You know what the irony is, Patricia? You chose me because you thought I was weak. Thought poverty made me powerless. But poverty taught me something you never learned, how to survive when everything is taken from you. How to fight when you have nothing but your truth. You had everything, money, power, status. And you used it all to hurt people weaker than you. I had nothing but my voice. And in the end, my nothing was stronger than your everything. She walked toward the exit, then paused without turning around. I forgive you, Patricia. Not because you deserve it, but because holding on to hatred would make me like you. And I'd rather die than become what you are. Behind her, Patricia began crying. Real tears finally. I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry. Celeste didn't turn around. Tell that to my mother. Tell that to Amanda. Tell that to all the other girls whose lives you destroyed. Your sorry means nothing to me. She left. She didn't look back. She was finally completely free. 10 years later, Dr. Celeste Harper is 33, running a successful practice and a foundation that has helped 500 students complete their education. Her story has been adapted into a documentary and limited series. Laws have been reformed based on her advocacy. She has saved others from suffering what she endured. She looks at the photo of her mother on her desk, and Harper, smiling in her waitress uniform, proud and strong despite her struggles. I did it, Mom, Celeste whispers. They tried to erase me, but I fought back. I became the doctor you dreamed I'd be. And I'm helping people, just like you taught me. The Blackwells thought poverty made her weak. They thought isolation made her powerless. They thought no one would believe a poor girl over a wealthy family. They were wrong. Because Celeste Harper learned something they never understood. True power isn't money or status. True power is knowing who you are and refusing to let anyone tell you different. She was poor. She was alone. She suffered tears and sorrow beyond measure. But she survived. She fought. She won. And she did it by simply refusing to accept their lies.